Good morning, Ram Nation. We are back with another edition of Dnvr Rams Live. As always, I am your host, Justin Michael. Hope everybody has had a good week. I appreciate everybody that tuned into the show yesterday. I gave out some breakout candidates. I had Andre kind of set the scene for the season by ranking the opposing quarterbacks that CSU will face this fall. It was awesome. If you missed that, make sure you go back and check it out. We're talking running backs today. It's a loaded room. I think it's a really exciting time for the state of the offense as a whole, but this running back room in particular is really encouraging. I'm going to give you some info about every guy. We're going to play an interview from Media Day. It's not very long, just a couple minutes, but with Kobe Johnson, kind of picked his brain a little bit. I talked to him about coming back from injury, what it's like being a veteran around some of the younger guys. I asked him if he ever considered transferring after getting hurt. He redshirted last year because he only played in 4 games. He told us that he never even considered that, which was encouraging. So we're going to talk about all that. If you missed it, there is a report from Ross Dellinger that the G5 commissioners are going to meet in Dallas next week. They're going to explore the potential of an alternate postseason tournament. Basically, what it would be is kind of like an NIT for college football for teams from the group of 5 that don't get into the college football playoff. I've been asked a couple of times if I have any inside information or anything like that. I don't. I will say I know that all of the commissioners, all of the ADs, especially in the group of 5, are constantly exploring the possibilities that are out there. They're always trying to find additional revenue streams. They're always trying to find ways to remain relevant in this ever-changing college football landscape. Off the top of my head, and I haven't put a ton of thought into this, I do think it would be kind of exciting, especially if you could find a way to kind of incorporate the bowl experience into it, make some more of these bowls matter again. Similarly to what the expanded playoff is going to do, it's going to make all the New Year's 6 bowls matters again. I just think it could be a fun way to, kind of reward some of the teams that win like 8, 9, 10 plus games, but aren't quite good enough to get into the college football playoff. That said, I do wonder if there would be some resistance because that could potentially, essentially, like if you're a G5 team, that could put it in a spot where you're kind of just accepting that you're going to be in a lesser field. I mean, it might be happening anyways. We'll see kind of what happens there. That would be my only like piece of skepticism towards it, but I do think it is kind of intriguing. We'll see what happens there. CSU women's soccer began the fall sports calendar last night. It was a 0-0 draw against Idaho State. I had an opportunity, along with the rest of the media, on what was that? Gosh, the week's been so long. Wednesday, media day, along with Jay Norvell and all the access we got with football. We got to hear from the track coach. We got to hear from Keely Hagan, the women's soccer coach, as well as Cohen, the volleyball coach. I'm going to play some of that audio on the podcast in the coming days. Make sure you keep an eye out on that. We're going to try and do everything that we can to keep you up to date with all things CSU. Obviously going to be much of the focus on football and basketball this fall, but we'll talk about those other programs when we can. Getting into the running back stuff, I'm really excited for this offense in 2024. A big part of that is obviously the receivers, BFN, but also I think this running back room is deeper than it's been in a long time. When you look at the history of the running back position at CSU, there have been some greats that have come through. I mean, most recently, Dalen Dawkins and Capri Bibbs kind of come to mind. Those guys were studs. CSU actually hasn't had a 1,000-yard rusher since Dalen back in 2017. He went for about 1,400 yards, was really effective as a receiver that season as well. But I mean, looking back even further, obviously you've got the GOAT, Steve Bartolo, still the leading rusher, almost 5,000 yards in his career. I don't know if that's ever going to be topped unless CSU like completely switches to an offense where they're running the ball like 50 times a game or something like that. Kevin McDougal, Cecil the Diesel, Kyle Bell, Damon Washington. I mean, there are so many great running backs over the years. Lawrence McCutcheon. But it's been a little bit of a dry spell here, and that's not for a lack of talent, but the Rams have not rushed the ball with a lot of consistency of late. If you go back to the beginning of the Sonny Lubick era, there have been 11 1,000-yard rushers for CSU football. The Rams finished 500 or better in 10 of 11 seasons. The outlier was 2011. That year, Chris Nwoke went for over 1,000 yards, but they only won 3 games. They won the first 3 games, then lost 9 straight. That happened a couple of times under Fairchild. That was always so brutal because you'd get kind of excited, or actually I think they went 3-1. They won the first 2, lost to CU, then they won one more, and then they lost 9 straight. It was rough, but I'm interested to see kind of how these backs are able to fare, if they're able to produce the way that I think they're capable of. I mean, you've got about 6 different guys that are probably going to get a touch at some point. You feel really good about the state of the offensive line. They're definitely going to have to be more consistent than they were a year ago. Average 92 yards a game, 3.3 yards per carry in 2023. Van Shield, of course, the leading rusher on the team. He had 90 carries for 389 yards and a couple of touchdowns. I'm obviously rooting for him at UNC. I don't mean this as a slight at him, but the running back room is much upgraded this year. He's a guy that stepped up for CSU in a major way. They were able to trust him in pass protection, which was a big reason why he was out there. I mean, he ran hard. He, averaged about 4 yards a carry. It's not like he wasn't productive. There were also some opportunities to break off bigger runs where he got caught from behind, and you kind of could see just how much more explosive the offense got when Justin Marshall went out there. You're hoping that he can build off of a really strong finish to the end of this season. If CSU were to have 1,000-yard rusher, I think that would be very encouraging on multiple levels. To me, that would indicate that this team has kind of improved in some of the areas they struggled last year in the fourth quarter when it comes to trying to put teams away. It's always going to be about the passing offense. Like, that's the air raid inherently. Like, that's going to be the star of the show. Is BFN throwing it around, spreading it around to all these receivers? That said, when you're trying to hold leads, it can really put you in a tough spot. If you can't run the ball with any type of consistency, it puts a lot of pressure on you to execute consistently with, the pass rush breathing down the quarterback's neck. If you had 1,000-yard rusher, I think it would indicate the ability to play at different paces and dictate the tone physically, which is not something that CSU did consistently a year ago. The offense took a major step in the right direction, but a lot of that had to do with like scheming up the perfect play and really catching defenses, on surprise. And that's going to be a big part of it as well. But there are also times where you just got to line up and punch them in the mouth. And I think that with the stable of backs that they have this year, they're just going to be in a better position to run the ball with consistency. And Justin Marshall, I think, is going to be the lead back, but I do think that they're going to have, at least 5, potentially even 6 guys that kind of factor into the mix this year. As Taylor says here in the Toyota chat, so many good backs this year. He doesn't see a guy with 1,000, but the run game will be much improved this year. Maybe multiple guys with 600 plus. That is a good point to bring up. There's a variety of reasons why CSU may run the ball with a much more effectiveness, and they still may not crack 1,000 yards with any individual. Part of that is they have so many options. I mean, I could see a situation where you have 4 or 5 guys factoring into the mix, and because of that, nobody gets enough in totality to reach that number. Another reason might be the passing offense is just so explosive. You're creating big plays down the field that you might not have the opportunity to. I do think it is a goal that they should strive for. And when you look at when those offenses were really firing at Nevada, they did run the ball with some consistency. Same thing when you look at Norvell's time at Oklahoma. Like, the passing was always, the feature, but they were always able to run the ball with consistency. And I think that's going to be a big factor for the Rams this year. Justin Marshall was awesome down the stretch. He had averaged about 98 yards a game to close out the year. He had 119 yards on 6.6 yards per carry against San Diego State, 94 or more yards in all 3 of those final games. He was just so explosive. Like, you could feel the pace of the offense change when he got out there. I went back and I rewatched that San Diego State game. I forgot how weird it was, man. You had an opportunity to essentially be up like 30-0 in the first half. Classic CSU, couldn't step on the throat, had to kick a couple of field goals. They got a safety. Still don't know what San Diego State was doing. 3rd and long, deep in their own territory, giving a one-on-one opportunity to blitz the quarterback was a decision by the Aztecs. But, down the stretch, Marshall really broke that game open. And what was funny, and I didn't really remember this, was he didn't even get his first carry till late in the first quarter, didn't get his second one till a couple minutes into the second quarter. Much of that production came, down the stretch in the second quarter, going into halftime, and then in the third and fourth quarter as well. There were a couple of instances in that game which really demonstrated exactly why CSU needs to run the ball more consistently this year. I mean, you're up 2 possessions in the second half. There's a play early in the fourth quarter that really comes to mind is 3rd and 2. They try and run the ball to the edge with Van Shield. Basically goes for no gain. They end up punting it back. San Diego State goes down and scores a touchdown after that. If you convert that first down, probably game over at that point. I mean, you probably just go down the field and bury them. There were a couple opportunities, though, whether it was in Boulder. Obviously they had the one late near midfield, and then they end up punting. The Buffs go 98 yards to force overtime, end up winning the game in double overtime. I mean, there are times where you got to put teams away, and they couldn't do that last year. I think CSU is going to be able to do that much more effectively this year, especially if Justin Marshall can build off of what he showed over, those last couple of games. I mean, his vision, his speed, it was awesome. He's got terrific vision. I do wonder, how consistent can he be in pass protection? What does he bring to the table as a receiver? I'm interested to kind of see what happens there. And because of that, I think there's going to be some opportunities for a couple of different guys. But I mean, he showed the type of burst and the ability to make one cut and then get his foot in the ground and get upfield in a way that we haven't seen that since at least Dalen Dawkins. I mean, he even looked like, he even looked a little bit like Capri at times. He was so shifty, probably even a little bit faster, to be honest. I mean, I'm really excited for what Justin Marshall can potentially do this year. We're going to keep talking about all this. Real quick, though, I do want to shout out Coors Light. Life gets really chaotic. It's definitely been a long summer for me. It's been good. It's great to be back in Fort Collins, but moving was just the worst. And then, it's exciting to go to a new place, but you get up and unpacking just ends up being way more of a hassle than you realize it's going to be. You just have so much crap. I got rid of as much of it as I could, but there were times where the days were long and I was just in a bad mood. It's important that I don't take that out on people. I want to be a chill guy. And like Coors Light, I encourage you to choose a chill mindset. Do your breathing, go outside, take a walk. Mowing the lawn, honestly, has been kind of therapeutic for me of late. Then when you're done, when you put yourself in the right mindset, crack open an ice cold Coors Light. When the mountains turn blue, it's as cold as the Rockies, cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold packaged for a smoother finish. Coors Light is mountain cold refreshment, crisp and refreshing as the Colorado Rockies. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. I also want to talk to you guys about the Circa Sportsbook. It's run by the same awesome people that run the Circa Resort and Casino out in Las Vegas. And what's awesome about the Circa Sportsbook is they're for the people. You get some of the best odds around. Other places you might get more like -115, -120 splits. Circa, they say nah, more like -110. They don't limit player winnings once you start winning. And they've got great customer service. Unlike other places who use chatbots, you're going to talk to some real people, which that's rare these days. Download the app at circasports.com. Circa Sports bets can be made while physically located in the state of Colorado. Must be 21 or older. All rights reserved. Circa Sports Colorado encourages you to gamble responsibly. Gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER, or you can visit problemgamblingcolorado.org. All right, along with Justin Marshall, the return of Kobe Johnson is big for this offense. I would say he's the most versatile running back in the room. Like, I do think that the most carries, particularly, first, second, third down early on in the game, those are going to go to Justin Marshall. But I think Kobe Johnson comes in quite often and can change up the pace. He's the best receiving back on the team. He played a little bit of receiver in high school. He's got great experience. One of the things that I love about Kobe, he comes from a winning program. He won a couple of national championships at North Dakota State. Was a big part of their success in 2022. He came in last year. He demonstrated that explosiveness. I mean, he houses a kickoff against Washington State. I think you'll see him back there somewhat this fall as well. Led the team in carries a couple of times in those first 4 games, 44 carries for 128 yards, 1 touchdown. I will say early on in the year, I think some of the running struggles can be attributed to the offensive line. They were great last year in pass protection in particular. Felt like they kind of gained some steam, I guess I would say, as the season went on when it came to the ability to create traction in the run game. I also think having a more explosive back out there consistently was a factor as well. Kobe, he did break his wrists last year. He said he's healthy. We're going to play an interview here with him in just a second. But I love that he comes from a winning program, has a ton of experience. This is going to be his 6th year of college. Rushed for 2,500 yards with the Bison, 19 total touchdowns during his FCS career. He only averaged about 8.2 yards per game over the 52 games that he's played in his career. So despite the fact that he has all this experience, he's played in some huge games, he's been productive in big moments. It's not like he's coming in, with 500 carries or something like that. And I think he still has some miles on those tires. So I'm excited to see kind of what he is able to do. I think him being back is huge for this team. Him deciding not to go in the transfer portal and run it back with the Rams, even if last season probably wasn't exactly what he envisioned when he came over. That was huge. I mean, I love that they were able to add a couple of guys from North Dakota State. Tony Pierce was great last year. Dom Jones at corner, he's back this year as well. They need those NDSU guys to make an impact this year. Here's a couple-minute interview with Kobe Johnson. Appreciate him giving us some time on Media Day. I just kind of picked his brain on a couple of things, BFN as a leader, how he's feeling, whether he consider transferring, all of that stuff. So here's that interview with Kobe Johnson.
When you get hurt like that and you can't play at your full potential, you kind of get in your own head, and that's kind of what was going on with me. So just talking to Norvell and Coach Moses and my family about the decision, it made it real easy for me to just take that year off. And that year off, I mean, I had no plans on leaving. I knew this is where I needed to be.
You always want to stay.
I wanted to stay. I knew I wanted to stay here. That was a big thing of mine, and then just getting ready for the next year, because I knew being a leader of the running back room, trying to be a leader for the team as well, I needed to work on myself and just continue to better myself so I could do that for the next year.
Yeah. Going back to spring ball, Jay has been pretty honest about, we got to run the ball with more consistency. We got to be better in these tight games. That's got to be exciting as a running back. Like, all right, I'd love to hear that. We're going to run the ball a little bit.
100%. Man, because they're recruiting, they're telling me, this is an air raid team. We throw the ball, but also while they're recruiting me, they're telling me we want to run the ball. And talking to Coach Norvell, kind of knowing his background, where he's come from, I understand that that's what he wants to do. And from what I've been seeing, it's starting to look like almost a running team at this point. Honestly, I'm loving the O-line chemistry. We're getting a lot of chemistry with them, as well as the tight ends. Yeah, receivers are doing a great job on the perimeters when it's their when it's their time to block for us. It's all meshing really well right now.
You came from a program that has had just an abundance of success. What have you seen from Braden over the last year? Like, what kind of growth have you seen from him, and just maturity? I mean, it's got to be hard to be a redshirt freshman coming in.
Being a young quarterback, I can't imagine how hard it is to go out there on Saturdays and have the pressure of almost the world on you. He does a great job of, when he makes a mistake, he doesn't dwell on it. A lot of not even just young quarterbacks, but a lot of quarterbacks in general, they'll kind of live in the past in situations, but he'll make a mistake. Come to the sideline, he'll be like, look guys, I got it. I know what I did wrong, and he'll move on from there. Won't even think about it anymore. And I think that's where he's continuing to grow in that aspect.
How are you feeling in terms of your health status? You are 100% at this point?
I feel great. This is the best I felt. It's my 6th fall camp, 6th season. This is the best I felt. I'm ready to run.
We were just talking to the volleyball team, and they've got 5 fifth-year players on the team, and the coach was just like, all the grandmas are out.
Right.
Do you feel old around some of these guys? Like, is that kind of a weird culture shock? Of like, it's a big difference between being 18, 19 years old and being a 6-year guy.
Man, because I remember my freshman year being around guys who are 22, 23, and I'm just like, yeah, they're old.
Yeah.
And like kind of being in that role now, I kind of see it. It's like the music taste, kind of the conversations, the way we talk, it's a bit different, but I enjoy being around the younger guys. I really do. Like Jordan Ross, young freshman coming in, I enjoy being around him. Damian Henderson, guys like that. Like they make me feel young still, honestly. Yeah, I like it.
I've heard a lot of good things about Jordan. Jay was talking about him at Media Days. Tori and Jack both spotlighted him. It seems like he's the real deal.
He is. He's a special talent. I'm glad he's on our team.
Yeah.
For sure. 100%.
Thank you. All right. Love the leadership from Kobe Johnson. Loved his mentality. I love the fact that he came back. I think he's going to be really big for this team. Cracked me up talking about being an older guy and like the music taste being different. There was a clip of Patrick Mahomes that went viral. The Chiefs posted it about a week ago. It was him out at practice, just being like, man, like I feel old. I don't know any of these songs out here. And he talks about, I listen to all kinds of music too. I feel that every single day at practice. I think I turn to Kevin Lytle 2-3 times, every over the 90 minutes or so that we get to watch, and just be like, have you ever heard this before? The answer tends to be no. Definitely feel old, but I love that he has decided to come back. I think he's going to be a big part of this offense. I think the ability to get him involved in the screen game, I think the ability to get him even between the tackles. Like, he's not the biggest running back in the world. Let me see what he's listed at right here, 5'9", 190. But he runs low to the ground. He's not afraid of contact, much like Dalen. He plays bigger than his size. And again, you just love that experience, especially for a team that is trying to do the little things right and kind of, get through that, or, break through, I guess, in a way that they just have not been able to do since 2017. If the Rams are able to run the ball with more effectiveness, that is going to be a major for this team's success. One of the young guys he mentioned, in addition to Jordan Ross, and again, it is great to hear so many of these veterans bringing up Jordan Ross unprompted. Damian Henderson could be in position for a breakout season as well. 6'2", 205 pounds. He's a big dude, and I think you're going to see him a lot in some of those third and short situations. I think they'll use him around the goal line. But I also think they're just going to give him the ball, and he looked good in the scrimmage this week. Had one drive where he had at least 3 carries of 10-plus yards and capped it off with the touchdown. 12 carries for 50 yards as a freshman. He ended up redshirting this past year, had 7 carries in that win over Utah Tech. He was an ESPN 4-star recruit and a top 300 player in the 2023 cycle. Rushed for 1,700 yards, 23 touchdowns as a senior. Picked CSU over offers from Arizona, Oregon, San Jose State, and Washington. He's a guy that I think, again, like I do think they'll find ways to get him involved much more consistently, in particular, if they can trust him in pass protection. That's the thing about being a running back that's young. It's hard to get on the field early on in your career, because not only do you got to be proficient, doing your responsibilities in the run game, like if they can't trust you in pass pro, especially in this offense, you're not going to be on the field. And while he and Justin Marshall are incredibly explosive, and it's easy to look at the lack of consistent run success last year and be like, why didn't you give them the ball more? It's because, like they might be able to break off a 10, 12-yard carry, but the very next play, they might be a liability in pass protection and get your quarterback smoked, and now all of a sudden the entire context of your season changes. And that's why, like, as exciting as it is for some of these young guys, it takes time. I do think they'll use him much more than they did this past year. I think he's poised. I think he's ready. He's running hard. It seems like he's handled the whole situation well, too. I was curious kind of how that would play out. He was the highest rated recruit, in that previous signing class. You have a guy who came in and kind of stole your shine a little bit in Justin Marshall. Although, I mean, both those guys picked CSU over multiple Power 4 offers. So it's not like, Marshall was some nobody or anything like that. But that can be hard, when you're the guy that comes in, everybody's talking about you. Everybody views you as the next big thing. And then somebody else in your class kind of steps in and ends up getting a lot of the glory. I'm always interested to see how guys handle that. Some people crumble. It brings the best out of others. And it seems like Damian Henderson has had his like competitive flame sparked here, and I'm excited to see what he can do this year. Interested to see kind of what he can do as a receiver, if he's a factor at all in the passing game. If so, I think that gives him, much like Kobe Johnson, more of an opportunity to be out on the field. The other running backs in the mix, and again, I think there's a chance for 6 different backs to potentially see the field this year. Avery Morrow, 6 foot, 210 pound grad student. He's had 1,096 yards and 6 touchdowns on 4.3 yards per carry over the last 2 seasons. Battled some injuries last year. He started the first couple of games, then got dinged up. We saw him again later on in the year. The staff trusts him. I mean, when the game got tight against San Diego State and CSU's trying to run the ball out, as good as Marshall was, as much as they had leaned on Van Shield to that point in the season, it was Avery Morrow who they gave the touches, on 3rd and short to put the game away. I do got to bring up, obviously, it's kind of a tricky situation off the field. He was convicted for 3rd-degree assault this past spring, a misdemeanor, but was sentenced to 60 days jail time, 4 years probation. He didn't actually go to, like physical jail, served it through work release, was suspended from the team all of the spring in 2023 before ultimately being reinstated. I'm not here to tell you how you should feel about that situation. I think there is an argument that he should have probably been kicked off the team for good. And if you feel that way, I wouldn't argue with you. Like, I do think you can argue that it's not the best look optically. I think that's a fair take. I also think it's fair to point out that he's a young man that made a mistake, and he paid for it pretty handsomely. So, like, I think back to how many dumb things I did at that age, and like if that would have dictated how the rest of my life was gonna go, that would be tough. I get actions have consequences, and what he did was wrong. I mean, he beat up a dude pretty good, another CSU student. Based on everything that I know that happened, the dude was definitely an asshole, and some might say had it coming. But there's a line that that you can't cross, especially legally. It's a tricky situation. I get all of that. Again, I'm not here to tell you how to feel about it, to like grandstand or anything like that. I mean, I do think there's also an argument that he served his time. He's doing what he needs to do, and basically he has like one big opportunity here to ensure that his life can stay on track, and this one bad moment, this lapse of judgment, doesn't end up completely throwing his life away essentially. Now, it's a tough spot. And again, like, I understand why some people would think, just cut ties. It's not, it's not an Ollie Gordon situation, not defending what they're doing at Oklahoma State, but Ollie Gordon obviously got arrested for a DUI, and Gundy in a kind of tone deaf way came out and was like, yeah, he's going to be punished. We're going to punish him by running the ball 30 times a game. And I understand that Ollie is an incredible talent, and I'm not surprised that they're essentially going to look the other way with him. But again, Morrow, he was suspended from the team for more than 6 months. CSU has determined that he can be a student, and he's earned the trust back of his coaches and teammates. And I'm rooting for him. I am, just personally. Again, like, I'm not telling you how you should feel about the situation, but I am rooting for him, and I hope that he's able to kind of learn from a really dumb moment, and he's able to kind of not have this situation end up just being worse than it already is. And again, really tough situation. I don't want to tell anybody how to feel. We're going to talk about the other running backs, a couple of young guys that could factor into the equation. But I do want to talk to you guys about Toyota really quick, the official vehicle of DNVR, also a proud partner of CSU Athletics. Trucks have always been a part of Toyota's DNA for generations. Toyota has built durable legends destined for greatness and perfect for Colorado. Whether you're conquering off-road trails or hauling the weight of the world, is a Toyota truck that's just right for you, like the all-new 2024 Tacoma and the return of the iconic 2024 Land Cruiser. Toyota offers 17 models with available all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, like the Epic 4Runner. Toyota also offers more low and zero-emission vehicles combined than any other automaker to give customers numerous choices to reduce their carbon footprint. There's 16 hybrid vehicles to choose from, like the Tundra iForce Max hybrid truck. Not to be outdone, Toyota SUVs take command on the road and on the trails, so you can explore the road less traveled without sacrificing smooth city rides. And SUVs like the RAV4 and Grand Highlander. Toyota is a proud partner of CSU Athletics and the official vehicle of DNVR. I also want to talk to you guys about Game Time. It's never been easier to get tickets last minute than it is with Game Time. When you use the code DNVR, you can get $20 off, and that's already off of epic deals. Game Time has all kinds of ways for you to save last minute. They've got sports shows, they've got stand-up comedy, they've got concerts, you name it, they've got it. It's the best way to save up to 60% when you're buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. They've got zone deals, they have got flash deals, they've got the lowest price guarantee. If you can find tickets that are cheaper in the same section, same row for less, they'll credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, use the code DNVR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem that code DNVR for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Appreciate everybody locked in with us, watching in the Toyota chat. If you wouldn't mind giving us a thumbs up, certainly would appreciate it. If you mixed it, make sure you go back. We've got some videos from Media Day. We've got Jay Norvell's entire presser up. We also have some conversations with Torrey Horton and Braden Fowler-Nicolosi. Appreciate those guys for giving us some of their time. Some of the young backs that I think are going to factor into the equation, probably much less so than the four guys that we've already talked about, but I do think they're there's a path to playing time, especially if these guys continue to stand out in practice. Keegan Holles, 6', 200-pound, former walk-on, did get added to the scholarship, or good Lord, was given a scholarship at the end of 2022. Phrase that so awkwardly. He had 10 carries for 48 yards in the loss to Boise State in 2022. Also had 11 kickoff returns for 163 yards. He was a receiver at Cherry Creek High School, but he missed his entire senior year with a torn ACL after earning a scholarship after walking on as a freshman. Ended up tearing his ACL last year as well. He's a guy that can play. I mean, he can really run, set the school record in the 100-meter dash in high school. 2 ACL tears in 3 years, that's tough. And, that it could be a situation where, you're just injury prone at that point. And I mean, that can greatly impact you. That said, he is young enough that, there is a world in which he just figures it out. He stays healthy and they find a way to get him involved. I think there's a possibility for him to be, kind of a diamond in the rough type addition. I mean, if he stays healthy his senior year with how well he runs, he's going to be a scholarship player somewhere, probably, potentially, I guess, even bigger than CSU. A lot of those Cherry Creek guys end up in the Big 12. Iowa State in particular has been really active with Cherry Creek. A couple of guys that CSU's gone after, offensive linemen, especially these last couple of years. The other back, though, the young guy that could play into the mix is true freshman Jalen Dupree. 5'11", 200 pounds. He was a 3-time All-State selection coming out of Arkansas. His high school production was absurd. He rushed for 6,800 yards, 2,700 plus yards in each of his junior and senior years. He had 93 rushing touchdowns in his high school career. And those are like Derrick Henry type stats. Also had 500 receiving yards and 5 receiving touchdowns. So almost 100 total touchdowns in his high school career. 98. That is insane. Won a state title in 2022. Picked CSU over offers from Air Force, Arkansas State, Boston College, K-State, Purdue, Liberty, UNLV. I mean, there were a lot of successful programs that were after him. A lot of teams that run the ball as well. From what I've heard, there were some SEC teams that came in late to the picture. They weren't on him his entire career, kind of like CSU was. He was loyal to this staff. And I think he has an opportunity, especially next year, to be a big part of the rotation. But I think there is a path to playing time, especially, early on in the year. If you want to get him on the field a little bit and still save his eligibility, you can play in up to 4 games. He's a lot to handle coming downhill. I mean, he's got great size for a true freshman. He runs hard. He's got pretty good speed too for a guy of that size. So I'm interested to see kind of how he pans out. The staff have been very complimentary of him. Jay Norvell made a point to spotlight him when talking about the running backs the other day. He's a guy who I think has a very bright future. Now, they are really deep in the running back room. When they were recruiting him, I don't think you still expect Kobe Johnson to still be in the picture, but obviously the injury kind of changed that. I'm not sure that anybody expected Avery Morrow to be back. So, I mean, like there's 2 more veteran backs in the mix than he probably anticipated. That said, especially, I mean, if you can shine in practice, like there's a path to playing time. They're going to go with the hot hand. They're going to go with the guy that's able to most consistently pick up yards. So with that kind of size, with that speed, I think he has a chance to be pretty special, but I am interested to see kind of how that pans out. Cause almost 7,000 yards in high school. Like that's absurd production. Really interested to see kind of how he pans out. We do have a couple of questions from the Toyota chat that I'll answer. Going back to the beginning, I've had a couple of people ask about Texas. Do you think it improves our chances that Texas is the first game of the year? Also, I see Texas plays Michigan the following week. That is from the Oso Blanco. Much love to my guy. Appreciate you always locked in with us. I mean, I think as an underdog, like there's always the possibility for weirdness in these week 0 or week 1 games. I do think it opens up the potential for chaos. Like I think if you are a team who's going to be, a 4+ score underdog like the Rams are, you'd rather play them either really early in the year or really late in the year. Early in the year, they might be a little bit sloppy. Late in the year, they might have some injuries add up. I mean, they've already had some injuries add up. They're down their top 2 running backs. It sounds like they're considering converting a wide receiver to the backfield. Texas still has plenty of talent. I'm not saying like, oh man, now all of a sudden, take that CSU money line. But I do wonder if there's an opportunity there to maybe keep the game a little bit closer if they're not able to run the ball with the same type of consistency. If you can force some incompletions, if you can get some sacks, like you have an opportunity there to, get off the field if they're able to just run the ball down your throat. That's a little bit tougher, could end the game quicker. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can look at it. The last I saw, CSU was like a 36-point underdog. I do think there's a path to covering, especially just given that, as you mentioned, they do play Michigan next week. I don't think they're necessarily trying to wear their ones out. It's going to be really hot in August early on. One of the things, and Kevin Lytle talked about this when we had him on the show, playing in that type of heat, it's hard that day, but where it really takes its toll is that next week. It takes longer to recover. And with Texas having a big game against Michigan the following week, I do wonder if they have kind of an incentive just to get that game over with as fast as they can. I don't think they want to necessarily show too much. I don't think they're looking to like embarrass CSU or anything like that. I think going down there and being competitive would be big for CSU's confidence. I think we saw what playing well against a major opponent can do when the Rams went down and hung against, Alabama in 2017. Then they started the conference play with like 4 or 5 straight wins. 2013, very similar deal. I mean, you lose a game very flukily to Tulsa early on in the year on a walk-off field goal. They lost a tight game to San Jose State, but playing against Bama and kind of hanging, I mean, that was really like the arrival of Shaq Barrett. He just dominated that game. And going forward from there, you could just see that CSU had a different level of swagger. I already think this team has a lot of confidence, and that stems from the experience they have on both sides of the ball. They've got a great veteran leadership presence on both sides. You look at Jack Howell, Henry Blackburn, Cam Baratow defensively. Offensively, Jacob Gardner is the most experienced player in the Mountain West, but you've got Torrey Horton. There's a lot of faith in BFN. And even in special teams, Jordan Noyes. I struggle to pronounce his last name and people get mad about it. Patty Turner. These are guys that are really experienced, not just in football, but in life. I mean, they're older guys. And I don't know. I like that. I like that this team has that veteran presence. It's not all on young talent breaking through. They've got some guys that have been there. Now they need to be more consistent than they were in some of those tight games. And there's an opportunity, as we've talked about, for this team to really make some noise with 7 home games. You play 8 first-year coaches. You play a bunch of quarterbacks that are not established yet. I mean, I think there is an opportunity here for the Rams to factor into the Mountain West Championship mix. And if you're able to do that, then anything is possible. Getting a hot start early in the year would be big for the chances of going on and doing something even bigger than that. Look, I just want to see this team get into a bowl. Like, to me, that's a win. If you can win some games that matter, win a trophy game, win one of these rivalry games at home, get to a bowl, win that bowl, that'd be huge for the team. But I do think it feels crazy to say, given the lack of success in recent years, that there is a chance where if things go right early on in the year, where this team could really get hot and do something pretty memorable. So I'll be here for all of it. So I'll be back at practice tomorrow morning. So I'll bring you some updates from there. I'm going to play on an audio only podcast, which you can listen to Spotify, Google, etc. Again, we have audio only podcasts throughout the week as well. It's not just the YouTube shows. Make sure you're following us on social and on the website. We'll have plenty of written content. I've got lots of stuff coming up. Taylor wants to know in the Toyota chat, any more scrimmages? What content do you have planned between now and August 31st? Can't get it enough. I will preview the rest of the positions. I'm going to do some features and stuff like that, some player profiles. I have a piece coming out today on Armani Winfield. We'll do some more spotlights on some of the newer guys, especially as we get closer to the season. I think we're going to preview tight ends this weekend as well. Got an interview with Jackson Warren that you guys will be able to listen to. So all kinds of stuff coming out before August 31st. Football is going to be here before we know it. I cannot wait. And I'm with you, MOB. Henry Blackburn is that guy. I'm stoked that he came back for a 5th year. I'd love to see guys like him and Howell and Blackburn and Horton like have success. Guys that have been loyal to the program, guys that are good enough to play elsewhere and have chosen to stick it out with CSU. Loyalty is less common these days, but they've got some guys in CSU that really take a lot of pride in what it would mean to win together. And they take pride in playing for CSU. And it's cool. The vibes in the locker room are really good right now. The culture within this program it's in a good spot. It's in a place it has not been since probably like early Bobo, where there's still some excitement coming off of McElwain and what he could be. That fizzled out pretty quickly, but I'm excited to see what the Rams can do this year, and I'll be here throughout it all. Much love, y'all. Always proud to be. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.